Mr. Speaker, I yield myself 4 minutes.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, for 3 days the nation has watched as tens of thousands of federal employees were forced to stay home. As our men and women in uniform went without pay, as opioid treatment centers got cut off, and as parents faced the harrowing prospect that their children would lose their health insurance. The American people never wanted this to happen. Republicans in the Congress did not want this to happen, and we did everything in our power to make sure this didn't happen. The House passed a clean bill. A bipartisan majority in the Senate voted to pass that clean bill, but Senate Democrats shut it down. We were told it was about immigration, but Republicans always said that we would sit at the table. We already were at the table every single day before this shutdown, negotiating in good faith. Despite this political drama,
the House is not in order.
The gentleman withhold. The House will come to order. Members will remove themselves from the aisles and remove their conversations from the House. The House will come to order. Members will remove their conversations from the House and clear the aisles. The gentleman from California is recognized.
We were told this was about immigration, but Republicans already said we'd sit at the table. We already were at the table every single day before this shutdown, negotiating in good faith. Now, despite this political drama, I remain eager to get back to the table and put this all behind us. So I must ask, what was gained here at the expense of the American people? What was gained at the expense of our nation's reputation as a great and deliberative republic? Every policy in the House original bill the Senate passed today, every single policy is the same. If the Senate had passed this same bill on Friday, all this disgraceful political theater would have never happened. Now, as it always should have been, our government will open. Our troops will be paid, and our children will have health insurance. But that's not enough. We cannot continue to repeat the same mistakes again. Now, as my father used to tell me, it's not your mistakes that define you. It's what you learn from them. So let's commit to each other and to the American public that we will not continue to fund our government through these short-term CRs. Let's commit that we will pass through both houses every appropriation bill with full funding for our troops, full funding for our defense, and full funding for every service our government owes to its people. We all know this shutdown was an embarrassment. It didn't need to happen. It should have never happened, and it will not happen again. That, Mr. Speaker, is the government the people want, the government the people need, and the government the American people deserve. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
The gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Mr. Speaker, as I said this morning, the reason why the government shut down is because the Republican majority has failed to fund the government. They have the majority of the House, the majority of the Senate, and the presidency of the United States. And with all due respect to my friend, the majority leader, 5 previous shutdowns were purposefully perpetrated by my Republican friends, the last for 16 days. The continuing resolution on the floor today reflects that failure. It does not, 9 months after we should have been done, establish the level of spending for this fiscal year. 9 months late. As a result, another continuing resolution may be inevitable. And in this resolution, we will extend the harmful effects of another CR to both defense and non-defense agencies for another 17 days. That means the Congress will be more than 4 whole months into the fiscal year without a budget agreement. This is dangerous, Mr. Speaker, both to our military and to our civilian agencies, each of which require budget certainty. Before February 8th, Republicans must work with Democrats to resolve the issues at hand. This means working together to lift the budget caps in accordance with the principle of parity, which Speaker Ryan agreed to over the past 4 years and should continue to today and in the future. It also means working in a bipartisan, bicameral way to address the status of Dreamers, now that President Trump created a crisis with his ending of the DACA program. Congress should act responsibly to allow these young people to stay, as more than 80% of Americans believe should be done. And, Mr. Speaker, it requires reauthorizing community health centers and other critical health programs, essential to complement the passage of the CHIP reauthorization, which is included in this CR. We also, my colleagues, have a responsibility to help those impacted by the devastating hurricanes in Texas, Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, those affected by the wilderness fires in California, and communities struggling to combat opioid abuse. Congress must not waste the next 17 days as it has the last 114. I will be voting no, Mr. Speaker, on this continuing resolution, not because I don't want to see it pass, but because it does not guarantee that the Congress will address the issues that have been referenced. I pray that neither I nor the Congress will be in this same position come February 8th. I hope we will address in a positive manner the issues before us, and I am now pleased, Mr. Speaker, to yield 1 minute to the Minority Leader.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding and associate myself fully with his remarks. Thank you, Mr. Hoyer, for your great leadership. Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to the Republicans' latest stopgap funding bill. I take great pride in House Democrats overwhelmingly supporting the first continuing resolution in September to give the majority a chance to get the job done. But after months of Republicans' excuses and extensions, I refuse to be an enabler to the Republicans' failures any longer. This past week once again exposed the utter incompetence of the Republican-controlled government. Here we are ending the Trump shutdown with Republicans' fourth stopgap short-term bill. The fourth Republicans have failed to get their act together, the fourth time, to fund the government for a full year. In August, Defense Secretary Mattis has asked what would be an effect of another stopgap short-term spending bill on the military.
The gentleman is correct. The gentlewoman will hold. The House should be in order.
I'm confining myself to my notes to be brief. In August,
the gentlewoman withhold. The gentlewoman withhold. The House shall come to order. Remove your conversation from the House and keep the aisles open. The gentlewoman will resume.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In August, Defense Secretary Mattis was asked what would be the effect of another stopgap short-term spending bill on the military. You all know he replied, "It just creates unpredictability," he said. "It makes us rigid. We cannot deal with new and revealing threats. We know our enemies are not standing still, so it's about as unwise as can be." I'll submit other statements for the record to that effect from the Navy Secretary, etc. Now the Trump shutdown will end, but Republicans' wasteful incompetence continues. There's a dark cloud over the Capitol, Mr. Speaker, the deficit-exploding GOP tax scam, which has added nearly $2 trillion to the national debt. Republicans have made their choice. Tax breaks for corporations and the wealthiest are more important than certainty for our military. Republicans control the House, the Senate, the White House. They control what bills we vote on in Congress. We could have brought up a long-term bill long before now. We have placed our suggestions on the table as to what would be on the domestic side of that. Resources for opioid epidemic that kills 94 people every day in our country, funding for veterans infrastructure and services, saving millions of Americans' pensions in crisis today, for funding community health centers and life-saving research at the NIH, for child care for hardworking parents, for protecting patriotic young dreamers. And as our distinguished leader, Whip, said earlier, making sure we have the resources for those affected by hurricanes, for fires, and especially our folks in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. I'm going to submit some of that for the record. Because of the Republican majority's weakness, we still do not have a long-term spending bill that funds the military and the domestic investments that keep our America strong. We take an oath of office to protect and defend. Now we have to fund that. We have not delivered strong disaster recovery funding for Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and other victims of hurricanes. Congressional Democrats continue to propose bipartisan solutions, but Republicans refuse to take yes for an answer. We have not yet protected our courageous young dreamers. Not only should we protect them, we should embrace them, value them. We should be grateful for the inspiration they are to America. This is about meeting the needs of the American people. It is also about honoring the values that has made our nation a beacon to the world. Today, we end the Trump shutdown, but it does not diminish our leverage or our determination on the Democratic side to meet the needs of the American people. Democrats are united in our determination to get the job done. We are unified for a better deal, better jobs, better pay, and a better future. I urge a no vote and yield back.
No, gentlewoman yields back. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized, has 30 seconds remaining.
Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, we have 10 1/2 days left before we have another crisis in funding our government. Let us try to use these days. Those are legislative days. We have more calendar days. Let us try to use every one of those days to reach agreement on funding the government so we don't have another CR, which all of us believe is bad fiscal policy and substantive policy. I urge us to come together so that we can avoid another crisis like this, address the issues that we know need to be addressed. And I thank the Speaker for the time.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan.
The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Thank you. Pass your hands. Consent to advise and summary remarks to the Press House for 1 minute.
The gentleman is recognized.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. My colleagues, I just want to say a few words about the last couple of days. I know there's great relief that this episode is coming to an end. This shutdown did not need to happen. However brief, it inflicted needless costs on the country. There are no winners here today. I want to make that clear. No winners except perhaps the millions of families who depend on the Children's Health Insurance Program. Soon, the longest reauthorization in the program's history will about to become law. But this is not a moment to pat ourselves on the back, not even close. We very much need to heed the lessons of what just happened here. We need to move forward in good faith, yes, on DACA and immigration, yes, on funding our military so that it gets the resources that our military so badly needs. Let's address these urgent challenges. Finally, I think all of us want to join in thanking the men and women who serve in our armed forces and who serve in our government around the country and around the globe. You see, they and their families are the ones who kind of get caught up in things like this. For them, these aren't political debates. They're livelihoods. The country's safety and security depend on responsible governing. That is why I sincerely hope that we never find ourselves in this position again. And I thank all of our members for their patience this week. I yield.
All time for debate has expired. Pursuant to the order of the House of today, the previous question is ordered. The question is on the motion by the gentleman from California, Mr. McCarthy. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Maryland seeks recognition.
Mr. Speaker, on that I ask for a recorded vote.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring the vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote. On this vote, the yeas are 266 and the nays are 150. The motion is adopted without objection. A motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to take from the Speaker's table Senate Concurrent Resolution 33 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the concurrent resolution.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 33, concurrent resolution providing for a correction in the enrollment of H.R. 195.
Is there objection to the consideration of the concurrent resolution? Without objection, the concurrent resolution is agreed to, and the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Before the House of Communication.